the three stages of consciousness or intelligence means the same thing. These are the steps that things go through when they're naturally ascending into their perfected form. So the last stage is the ultimate stage. It's the end stage of anything. And it's also what you attune to, what you become attuned with, what you become a part of, what you become um, when you are on the enlightenment path, when you get to enlightenment. But it's also across many different things. So it's not just this overall state where uh, your consciousness is sort of largely the third stage. Um, it's also that there's all these different parts of you and aspects of your experience that are also going up in these stages. So the first stage is unconscious. And unconscious is when something is uh, a routine, a habit, something repeating. It's when you're not aware that it's happening. So, for example, every time that you go to eat, um, when you're chewing and swallowing and biting and getting the next piece of food, uh, for most people, there's a lot of unconscious movement there where it's almost like they're not even aware of how they're moving their teeth or cheeks or tongue or swallowing or all of the details within that. There's a lot of unconsciousness. And it's just these conditioned habits that we've found over time, that we build up over time. And then we kind of do things pretty much the same way. And that's why it's also a lower level of intelligence. An unconscious um, part of ourselves isn't adaptive, it isn't fluid, it doesn't really know how to change based on the situation, it doesn't know how to do the perfect thing. It just knows how to do the thing it knows how to do. Um, and we can see also with people, maybe people can be largely unconscious too, where their entire behavior, the way that they are in the world, and they have some parts of them are more intelligent. They're at these higher stages, but then a lot of them, the largest part of them, is unconscious, where they're just sort of getting up and doing the same routine every day. They brush their teeth the same way with the same product. They go to their job and do unconscious things there. It's not a fulfilling job. They're just sort of doing a routine, mundane task, and then they come home and then they do more unconscious things. They put on the TV or something. Um, and these stages, they naturally lead into the next one, and all of it is divinely and perfectly planned. It's really important that right now what is unconscious in you is unconscious, and it's the same for these people that we witness who are largely unconscious. It's actually perfect for them. They're on their own soul's journey, and at the moment that journey includes a lot of unconscious habit, and that's just the way it is. um, and there's lots of things that are unconscious in you too that are just part of your journey. And with inquiry, with looking into what there is that is unconscious inside of you, all of a sudden it's perfect for that to move on to the next stage, which is when something's conscious. When something's conscious, you're observing it. There's an observer, there's a thing looking at a thing. um this conscious awareness. So um about 8.5 years ago, my first spiritual experience was observing the observer, becoming conscious of thought. Um, when I hadn't really done that before, thought was largely unconscious for me before that point. And then thought became conscious, and it was this explosion of consciousness. And we can see that when something goes from unconscious to conscious, there's more consciousness. Um, So conscious is when you're looking at something. It's when it's a bit more intelligent now. Now, when you're eating, you're able to sort of mindfully chew. You're like, ah, yes, I want to chew this slower. I don't want to chew this fast anymore, like I was doing unconsciously, because I want to savor this piece of meal. And you're adapting to the food. Or um, we can see it with thoughts, with habits. Like one way that we might be experiencing things is just seeing everyone as almost like projections of our ideas. And that's an unconscious projection where when we see someone, we're not really seeing them, we're seeing our ideas of them, or people we've met before that are like them, or maybe even our family members. And we're just sort of pasting on these conceptual views unconsciously onto them. And if we're conscious, then we'll be noticing that. We'll be like, oh, I'm putting my unconscious views on this person. Actually, they're not like that. You're able to adapt to the person then. You're not just in response to the habit. You're like, oh, um, I understand that I'm projecting onto this person views that aren't theirs. And I also understand that I can actually get in tune with who they really are more closely. There's this larger amount of intelligence, larger amount of consciousness. And you can see this even with, say, like tensions in your body. This is something that moves across a lot of different areas. Everything can really be slotted into these stages. Um, so, for example, a tension in your body, let's say that you had an unconscious tension that was causing pain. When it becomes conscious, now you're aware of the tension, and the tension can kind of resolve from there. You can work through it. Um, or let's say you have an energy block. So we're talking about energy. If it's a block and you're not aware of it, it's unconscious. When you're aware of a block, that's conscious. And now the third stage. So the third stage is the ultimate intelligence. It isn't possible to be more intelligent than this. When something is in this stage of consciousness, it is always acting perfectly according to the situation. There is no way for it to go wrong. You're always acting extremely super intelligently. And this is enlightenment. No, I wanted to say, so people can be largely conscious as well. People who are very mindful are largely conscious. Most of them is consciousness. Most of them is conscious awareness. They're observing, lots of awareness of what's going on, lots of shifting, and the stages lead one into another. When you've got a lot of consciousness, that leads you into a lot of unborn awareness. So this is the last stage of consciousness, and it's when something isn't arising. So something isn't arising, but you are aware of it. But there's just the awareness. And that just the awareness isn't separate from the thing. So now, let's take the eating example. You would be aware of every sensation and movement of your mouth and how everything moved, but you wouldn't be consciously thinking about, you would be a person being like, hey, how do I eat this food the best right now? You would just be automatically, perfectly eating it with no problems, and you'd be doing it exactly what was appropriate for the moment. And we take this example now to a person. You're seeing a person, this person that before, if you're conscious of them, you'd be seeing that maybe your thought was playing a part, and you'd be trying to lean more into seeing the real them. With unborn intelligence, non-arising intelligence, awareness that is just perfectly unified with your experience, you're seeing them exactly as they are. So you're seeing them without any projections, and you're seeing them perfectly. And that perfect awareness is perfectly also responding to everything that they are. And this unborn, someone who is, mostly in the unborn, or what I would say is enlightenment is when this non-arising awareness becomes so let's say you're observing the self, and you're observing, you have an unconscious self. There's all of these little patterns and tensions and sensations that appear to be you, but you're not aware of them. and then you become conscious of them, and you're like, oh yeah, look at this. There's like a there's like a cluster of sensations here that says it's me, and it feels like there's a me behind my head, and it feels like there's a me in my body sometimes, and like it feels like this is me. And then you and then enlightenment, I would say, is when you move that into the non-arising intelligence, the unified awareness with everything, where now, instead of um being aware of a self, conscious of a self, um the self sensations or anything like it are no longer arising, and everything you're experiencing is just unified with the present moment, unified in awareness. um and that's enlightenment. And you can also do this with a bunch of other things. Like, let's say if you really wanted to tune into your legs and how you moved and how you walked, you could go from this unconscious to conscious to non-arising, where first you're sort of bringing up all these unconscious habits of when you walk. Oh, I like turn my ankle this way when I'm like on a hill, or when I'm walking, I kind of favor the left leg, and then you become conscious of that and start adjusting it, and then you get to the non-arising awareness place where your legs are unified. Your walking is now unified with this perfect non-arising intelligence that can never make a mistake and is always doing the right thing. Um, and now your walking is fluid and beautiful, and you're perfectly adjusting to all of the circumstances. So that's the three stages of consciousness. Um, and I'm just going to contemplate to see if there's anything else that I'd like to say. So, how do you move from one stage to another? Well, by becoming more conscious of it. As you become conscious of unconscious habits, you bring your attention inward to see and find unconscious things. They start becoming conscious. You start observing them. You've already jumped in consciousness. And then as you stay with that consciousness, you stay with the conscious awareness and sort of incline towards this non-arising unification, this union with this non-arising intelligence that is the present moment and is everything. As you incline towards the natural flow of increasing consciousness, uh, you'll find that those things start disappearing too. And this is the insight path in the Buddhist stuff as well, is becoming aware of the unconscious suffering, unconscious, the pervasive pain. And you can look at my other video where I talk about this, the unconscious pervasive pain, which just is in your experience, the unconscious feelings of the self, and the unconscious ideas of continuity, like looking at an object and then thinking that it's permanent, looking at yourself and thinking that it's permanent, thoughts kind of sticking and staying and seeming like they're blocks of things that just exist. And as you become more conscious of them and then inclined towards um, attaining a higher level of consciousness, being open to full enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, a full attainment for the benefit of others, um, you'll find that these things kind of just start disappearing. And you can see that sort of there's a lot of terminology which fits in with this. So you've got an attachment. An attachment is something unconscious, and then you've got awareness of an attachment, and you're trying to let it go. That's the conscious step. And then when it's let go, it's no longer arising for you, and yet the thing that it was in relation to is now perfectly intelligent when you're participating in it. You're no longer being pulled into it. You're just only doing it when it's appropriate, when it's the best thing to do. There's no dependency anymore. That's when you're unified with the unborn awareness. Thanks so much. If you'd like to subscribe, um, I'm going to be doing more videos, so you'll see those videos when they come out. All right, everyone. Hope you have a really nice day and a nice evening. Wishing you all happiness and freedom from suffering. Enjoy. Bye.